But it is a gorgeous day out here. Out here on the deck, it's about 73 degrees, which is as good as it gets here in Pittsburgh. It's gorgeous, sunny, and super nice. And I think we're in a little bit of a lull with the neighbors' lawn mowing and lawn tending and whatever. So anyway, let's just get right into it with the books. I'm also going to combine the Sunday Salon with with my April reads as well. So let me just tell you a little bit about what I've been reading this week. I have been, let's see. So I'm going to count this as an April book, but I'm in the middle of Insecure at Last, a political memoir by Eve Ensler, and most people probably know Eve Ensler as the author of the Vagina Monologues. She is a playwright and an activist, and this book kind of talks a lot about her work as an activist on a global scale. She writes about being in camps in Bosnia and working with women in Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, and just like the horrific stories that she has heard and experienced from women around the world. So this is a really powerful book. I think that it's based on the premise that of security, and and how we are, the more that we think that we're secure, the more that we're not. And that probably doesn't make that much sense, but the book is really good and very eye-opening and very enlightening. So anyway, so I am enjoying this. It's a bit of a rough read, and I'm also going to be counting this as one of my April books because it fits an April challenge. I figure, it has been kind of a little bit of a difficult past week, and so I figured if my mortgage company can give me a grace period every month for my mortgage, then I can give myself a little bit of a grace period now and then for my reading challenges. So that's what I've been reading. I've also been reading, another one I've been reading is Little Matches by a memoir of grief and light by Maryanne O'Hara. This is her memoir of the life and the death of her daughter Caitlin O'Hara, who had cystic fibrosis. She was diagnosed when she was 2 years old, and at that time the doctors had told them that Caitlin could either live to Christmas or she could live a long life. So with that knowledge, they embarked on treatments, and ultimately wound up here in Pittsburgh to find, in hopes of getting a double lung transplant. Apparently, UPMC, our medical system here in Pittsburgh, is the only medical center that, I'm also covering up the book a little bit, sorry. Our medical system here, UPMC, is apparently the only medical system in the country that would agree to do or attempt a transplant on Caitlin because she was so small, because of her small stature. So anyway, so they moved to Pittsburgh for what they thought would be only a couple months, and it wound up being 2 years. And I followed Maryanne's story during that time through Facebook, through her blog, ninelivesnotes.com, which much of this book is taken from. But she just did a author event here at White Whale Bookstore, one of my favorite bookstores in Pittsburgh. So they did a virtual event this week, and I got to attend that and talk to Maryanne a little bit afterwards, and it was wonderful. It would have been so much better if it was in person, but I've just started this memoir, and I think that this is going to be great. I'm also thinking that this might be a maybe midrash book as well, because it deals with questions of spirituality, about what happens after we pass away. And Caitlin was very much of an old soul. She had very much of a philosopher's way of thinking and being, and she was just such a ray of light. I've never met her, but she just had this personality that was just, so effervescent and illuminating, and she just had just such great wisdom, for someone so young. Also wanted to point out in this book the end papers of this. So let's see. So you can kind of see, like, the end papers are just various ephemera and different items of Caitlin's. Her nickname was Kitten, and so that is that is actually going to be incorporated into a bookplate that is being sent from Maryanne. There are a little, like, knitted lungs and some pictures of Caitlin and her boyfriend. So it's just a really special book, and I'm really glad that I had the chance to be part of the book launch. And yeah, so I'll be reading. I'm in the middle of reading that as well. Also, this week at White Whale Bookstore, there was another book event called for Rachel Mennies, author of the Naomi letters, and I talked about this on a previous booktube video, but now you can actually see the actual cover as opposed to the cover that was on my my Kindle. But I think that this cover is absolutely stunning, and it really does capture so much of the book. I talked about this at length in another video, so I will link that in the cards above. And but yeah, so it's just so it was fantastic to be able to be part of that event too. So so yeah, those are the books that I've been reading this month. So let's go on to the April books. Let me grab them real quick. Oh, I should also say too, like, making a mess out of things here. So there's my neighbor's socks. Also, Barack Obama has made an appearance again with A Promised Land. I came up on the library's hold list for the audiobook, so I've been listening to this in the car during my commutes. And so yeah, so Barack Obama is A Promised Land. So I am, let's see, on page 459. So there is a good chance that this will be finished in the month of May. So so yeah, so that wraps up what I have been reading this week. So on to the books for April. So these are my April reads. Let's see if I can do the big book pile. So there we go. So let's just go through them. So we've already talked about Eve Ensler's book. Wanted to mention Hamnet was the first book that I read this month. Maggie of Barrel. This deserves all the accolades, all the praise, all the wonderful praise that it's been getting. This is just an extraordinary book about Hamnet, which it was Shakespeare's son who died of the plague I always have to look up the news, in England, 1580. And so that was when the Black Death kind of swept across the country. And so even though it's interesting, like, Shakespeare is not mentioned by name in this book per se, but it is about his family. It really focuses so much on his wife Agnes and how she treated people with, she just was a very otherworldly soul and understood, like, the power of plants and potions in order to make people well. And this is just, I can't really say enough about it. It is wonderful. I loved it. Fantastic book. It recently won the Women's Prize for Fiction, and again, so deserving. Loved it. So another book that I finished was The Voyage Out by Virginia Woolf. This was kind of interesting. Not really quite sure how I feel about this one. I really liked the first third of it, and it centers on the character of a young woman who is about 24. Her name is Rachel Vinrace, and she is the daughter of a shipping operator, and she is, um, so it starts out where she is on a voyage with her father, who owns the ship, and they're sailing to a fictitious sound, Santa Marina in Brazil. And so, Rachel is someone, her mother has passed away. She lives with her elderly aunts, and she is uneducated. She really doesn't have much of, like, a she doesn't really have much of a background in how, like, life works, really. So so anyway, also on the voyage, like, she meets Clarissa and Richard Dalloway, and their interactions, are great. I really love that part of the book, and I really like when characters in one book from one author's from another author's work. Okay, I'm not saying this correctly. So I really like when characters from another work by the same author appear in another work. So this is where we meet Clarissa and Richard Dalloway for the first time. Obviously, again, we meet them again in Mrs. Dalloway, and I think that, that just kind of gives us a new appreciation, I think, on that book. Anyway, so but yeah, but then, like, after they arrive in Brazil, so there's a villa in Brazil, and so Rachel decides, to stay with her aunt, who was also on the boat. And like, her aunt kind of seems to have, like, this responsibility for her, like, in teaching her, like, the ways of the world, and making her understand, like, what it's like to be a woman or whatever. And so, like, there's also a hotel there, and so, like, the other passengers from the ship are staying at this hotel, and then they become kind of interconnected with it. They meet up with the people from the hotel, and then that's where Virginia Woolf really kind of lost me, because she introduces, like, a shit ton of characters. I mean, just so many that I can't keep straight. Hewitt and Hurst, and just like a bunch of others, and it was just, and anyway, so it was just a really convoluted. And then the last third of the book is also kind of interesting. I can't really say too much about it, because that part is really going to be giving a lot of the book away, about the plot. But this, I've heard this book described as being overstuffed, and I think that is an accurate word for this one. It's way too long. It has way too many characters. As a first novel, I think it is fine. I think if you are a Virginia Woolf fangirl, fanboy, fan person, I think that this is well worth the read, in order to have an appreciation of the canon, particularly Mrs. Dalloway. But if you're just kind of a passing fan of Virginia Woolf's, or whatever, this is not her best work at all. So anyway, I think I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and it is, it's all right. So last weekend I did Dewey's 24-hour readathon, which is a readathon where you read for as much as you can during this 24 hours. Like I said, I in a previous video, I am old. I'm 52. I like my sleep. I value my sleep. And so I never read for the 52 hours. 52 hours, Jesus. For the 24 hours, I typically read for, like, about 6 of them, maybe 8 anyway. And I like to choose smaller books. I like to choose books that fulfill a reading challenge. So this one is a middle grade mystery, When You Reach Me, by Rebecca Steed, and it has won the Newbery Award, and fairly short read. And this is about a young girl named Miranda. She is in the 6th grade, and she's very streetwise, and it just kind of grew up with her mother. Her father's not really in the picture, all that much. You know, as the blurb goes, they know where it's safe, who to avoid. There's a crazy guy on the corner. There's a group of kids who are kind of bullies, and then like mysterious things start to happen. Like the key to their apartment disappears, and Miranda finds these little notes like hidden in her coat, and you know, and someone's clearly watching her, and knows of things that are going to happen. So anyway, it is. I like this a little bit more than I thought I would. I mean, I think, you know, obviously I'm not the target audience for a middle grade book. I know many people who are middle aged, like enjoy middle grade books. I am, you know, not one of them. I'm just not. Just like I don't read a ton of YA. But anyway, I mean, this was fine. This one I read for the Book Riot's Read Harder Challenge. There is a prompt: read a middle grade mystery. This one has been sitting on my shelves for forever. It's probably going to be one that I unhaul because I really don't. My kids are not middle grade age, and I don't really, you know, foresee rereading this. But I mean, the plot was fine. It kept my attention. The characters were well developed, and you know, overall I liked it. It was fine. So if you are into middle grade mysteries, or middle grade books in general, this one might be one that you like. So then we come to the DNFs. First DNF of the month is Rodham by Curtis Sittenfeld. Talked about this in another video as well. And I lasted about 31 pages in this one. I really like Curtis Sittenfeld's short story collection. You Think It, I'll Say It. I was really had very high hopes for Rodham, and it did not deliver. I thought that the sex scenes in particular were absolutely god awful. I thought they were written very pedestrian like. I thought that they were just a little bit too much. They were just like too much. The writing was the writing just wasn't good in terms of, you know, that aspect of the book. I really like the plot, you know, which as everyone probably knows is about what if Hillary did not marry Bill. Very intriguing. You know, leads itself to a lot of armchair politics and armchair political quarterbacking, but ultimately it was just not a great read. So, you know, forget that. And then the other one that I DNF'd was Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. This was my Aussie April book, my Aussie April book, and I really was enjoying this one. I can't really say that. I read this right on the heels of Hamnet. Okay, so I read Hamnet first, and then I read Year of Wonders. And by that point, you know, in the month, it was getting like there were, like I said, there were a lot of life stuff happening this past month, particularly in the past week, and this one was just a little bit too much. So as I said in my Goodreads review, this was no fault of the book, no fault of Geraldine Brooks. The book was written. It was really compelling. I think I would have liked it really a lot better had I not read Hamnet first. And, you know, quite honestly, we're still in the middle of a real life pandemic. I just got my second vaccine on Friday, and thankfully no side effects, you know, except for like a headache. And but I think this was just like the wrong book at the wrong time for me. So nothing wrong with it. I think it might be one that I come back to again later in the future at some point. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, sometimes some books just hit us at the wrong time. So those are my April reads. So yeah, so that is 1, 2, 3, and we're going to be counting Insecure at Last as an April read. And so that is 4 books read, 2 books DNF'd for April. So May plans, I am planning to participate in Springathon. Also planning to participate in maybemidrash, and I am also doing the A Tree Grows in May, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Read along with Kate Howe. Kate Howe is organizing this, so I think I'm going to be doing that. And this is actually a book, just a real quick aside, and I'll let you all go. But this was a book that we had a college friend who passed away, and when she was about 30, and she had cancer, and at her funeral there was a table of her favorite books, and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was among them. And I was always kind of curious about this book because of that, and wanted to read it. And I did try it a few years after her funeral, and I really could not get into it. But I think that I'm going to try it now. See, give it another chance and see what I think. So anyway, so lots of May plans. There's my April reads. I hope you are having a great day. Hope all is going well in your life. Hope you are getting vaccinated and reading great things, and I will talk to you again in my next video real soon. If you like this, please subscribe, hit the notifications to get a notification whenever I post a new video, and I will talk to you again in the next video real soon. Thanks. Bye.